Hey everybody, it's Carm here. Back on almost Thursday. Not quite there, but we'll see it on Thursday. Yeah, it's been, I guess, a little while since I've done one of these. For a while I was using the lid of the turntable as a countertop for other things. I've been, future videos, CDs, stacks of those, so finally been getting around to spinning a little more LPs. And a little bit different this time. Doing this in tribute to another wonderful artist that just recently lost. I found this out from my pal Gary, Cosmic Pickle, many of you know. And it was David Darling, wonderful cellist, composer, multi-instrumentalist, all-around collaborator with various artists. Passed on, I believe it was on the 8th of this month, at the age of 79. To me, really the definition truly of a virtuoso, which to me isn't one who necessarily plays the fastest or the most technically dazzling on the surface, but someone who really has, I'd say, a really sharp and acute sense of context. Someone who's adaptable to really any musical situation, and still you very much hear them in the music. And to me, David was someone who was really a great example of that throughout his playing for many years, many decades. And I wanted to share a few here, albums that weren't necessarily him as a leader or merely as a side musician, but as a collaborator, which I think he was wonderful at. And examples of him playing with others, really kind of in equal footing for the most part. And I'll start with this one. River Notes. Barry Lopez and David Darling. Barry Lopez, wonderful writer, wrote a lot about both fiction and nonfiction on environmental matters, nature. And I just found out yesterday, looking him up, he recently passed himself just on Christmas. So I think he was 75. So I don't know. But I've read his Arctic Dreams years ago, which is quite good. And on here it's him reading his own work from The Dance of Herons, a series of short stories. And he's here, he's reading from his story, and David's playing cello and bells, he's credited as, accompanying him wonderfully here, as often as not plucking the cello or bowing it, playing chords, bass lines, those little harmonic figures, really accentuating the reading. A lot of what Barry has written here, as often as not, also is really from the point of view of the animals themselves, the herons, the other birds, fish, rattlesnake, even the trees themselves, the branches, kind of getting their perspective, and really very vivid imagery describing kind of what they're experiencing and the observing of them, really getting right to the very, essence of, I guess you could say, their own existence, and even accentuating it, his readings with, great deal of emotion, and even like making whooshing sounds, little sound effects, never overdone, but just kind of illustrating the sound of them. And David perfectly, again, matching, accentuating, highlighting, but never overwhelming the reading itself. At times, getting just very... I was thinking of something, I think a while back, Sherv was showing something in his videos, Julius Jabbar, talking about Gary Peacock, one of his albums, or an album he was playing in a trio, where he was saying if you just isolated the bass alone, it could be like a solo bass album. At times, it's like that here too, even though, again, he's very much well integrated into the context here. You just take what he's playing on cello alone, and that would be, it's fascinating in and of itself, because there's so much variety of what he's doing, whether he's playing with or without the bow, or either way. But just beautiful here. And yeah, you have two shorter sets of stories, and then the log jam, which is more, say, more from the human perspective than the animal perspective for the most part, and it goes through the years, kind of from, it sounds like it's highlighting a certain area of the wilderness and kind of through the stages of time. But again, wonderfully illustrated, and a great sense of narrative, of course, by both two great storytellers, one with the voice of his voice and the other with the voice of his cello. So a really nice example of something different from David accompanying a story here and telling a great one on his own. So yeah, really nice here. And I want to read the book now that from hearing this several times throughout the week. Yeah, River Notes, Barry Lopez and David Darling. This next one here is just wonderful and been a favorite of years, and of course of my all-time favorite label. A group called Gallery, self-titled. Really like this cover here. It's in most ECM albums in the poetry. It's done by, I think both the photography and the poetry was done by the same person. Photo and poem Miko Haitahayarm. But one talks about a supergroup in music. Sometimes the term could be a little overused. I think it's pretty applicable here. It was recorded in 1981, and you have here Ratso Harris on bass, Michael DiPasqua drums percussion, Dave Samuels vibes marimba, Paul McCandless soprano sax, oboe, English horn, and David Darling himself on cello. Again, an example of really a collaborative effort between the whole group. The compositions being split fairly evenly for the most part between the players. Starting with Soaring, David Samuels' piece. I really like the title, just kind of almost kind of swooping in. Somewhat starting kind of ethereal and then kind of become a little grounded as they go, playing as a unit. Right away with David's own playing on cello, his very individual sense of phrasing comes in, just the way he bends and slurs the notes. It sounds very vaguely Eastern. Like, I'm not sure if he ever studied directly East Indian music or Asian music, maybe Japanese, but you could hear a little bit of inflections there throughout, and it's just those little parts that it just grabs you like nothing quite else does, and you could hear that throughout his playing. And Prelude's a really nice piece, under a minute. It's just him and Dave Samuels vibes and cello, very short kind of chamber piece. Lost Game it's among my favorites on here. Michael DiPasqua composition. Probably the jazziest piece, although the music could be defined as so many things, kind of being jazz and not. But this one has a really nice sense of propulsion and interplay throughout. Paul plays a lot of soprano sax on here. You really hear his full rounded sound, and a lot of what David is doing is very complementary to that, as well as even when he's soloing, it's not like he's in the lead. It's like he's very much playing the melody, but somehow in a very integrated way with what everyone else is doing. And I'd say Ratso Harris is someone I'm not quite as familiar with, but his own playing is very solid, and a lot of little subtle accentuations on here without overwhelming what's going on overall. And of course Mike DiPasqua, a wonderful sense of flow as a drummer. Another one, I think, like all the players here, virtuosos in that sense that I personally understand. Painting is a really nice piece between the group and Manfred Eicher, a producer, gets a credit on here. Maybe the closest thing to contemporary classical music. Almost has kind of a droning feel to it. Very minimal, but just a sense of them kind of feeling their way through this very kind of dark area. But yeah, just another example of It's a very gradual process as they're kind of finding their way through. Pale Sun, Paul McCandless piece, where you could hear a little bit of what he does with organ, with his own compositional sense. Very melodic, very lyrical, and again, just the way they all the interplay overall. My personal favorite piece on the album is Egret, which almost spells Tergy or Terry backwards. If you look at it, you have to wonder. Although it's spelled a little different than Terry Ripdahl. This piece, this could almost it really makes me think of the river notes, in the sense that it really feels like a river. You imagine that, a river that's onrushing, unceasing, but in a kind of in a beckoning way. It doesn't feel like it's, it's not like a violent river. It's very, it's flowing unceasingly, but it also has, it's really taking you for quite a ride. But it's very inspiring and, I guess you could say, scenic along the way. Wonderful the way it starts in with Ratzo's a very simple bass line, just 2 notes, but it just kind of underpins everything else. Michael's incredible sense of flow on drums, and the interplay especially between David and Paul, almost kind of like a little bit of a call and response, kind of flowing into what the other is doing. And David's vibes are just gorgeous throughout, maybe a little more atmospheric than anything else, but just a beautiful piece and good representation of all of them kind of at once, and ending with Night Rain, which does have that kind of a nocturnal feel, a little bit closer to painting, maybe a little more abstract, a little darker, but also you're hearing probably the closest thing to a ballad on the album, between more like kind of heartfelt melodies, but not overdone, but just beautiful overall. And hearing the whole group as a real unit, all on equal footing with each other. It's a great example of all the players. David himself in another context, improvisational context, and really for the label itself, ECM, an excellent example. If you want to just get into the label, for the first time, this is a good place to start. Gallery, self-titled. As far as I know, this is the only one they ever had done together. And for the third one here, another really nice collaboration. This might have been the first time I heard David Darling, back in the early 90s. Amber, collaboration with pianist Michael Jones. It's an early Narada Lotus album from 1987. Just a gorgeous, ethereal, again, talk about that really nice blend and balance between ethereal and earthy, very much like the cover. Michael actually only plays on 4 of the cuts here, 4 of the 7 songs, and David pretty much plays throughout. Plays a variety of instruments too, electric and acoustic cello, Fender Rhodes, plays some piano himself, acoustic piano, hammered dulcimer and kalimba, more in the background. His cello, of course, is on the 4 throughout. Really nice, it's kind of ostinato bass line on the first cut, Rainfall, really sounding like the rain, coming in with some really nice bowed lines. His approach throughout it doesn't sound like the overlaid cello lines are more like a choir, more chorally approached than an actual string section. Like you have like an orchestral string section. It really is more like a voice, which I think he's always treated his instrument like that, just an extension of his body in that way. Sunshine Canyon, more Michael, here is playing more on there. Wonderful piano player, his own sense of narrative and pacing, very improvisational, but impressionistic as well. And they weave into each other wonderfully. Really indefinable, something close to classical, more improvisational, but also, where you have another style and approach emerging, which, something that attracts me to both of them. And, Indian Summer and could never pronounce that, Wu Wei. Another nice example of them both kind of playing off of each other. Wu Wei, especially for what David is doing on there, again with that kind of choral approach to his cello, with the overlaying lines. A little bit of a darker approach, although the whole album as a whole is very, it's bright but pensive at the same time. Perfect for early morning listening, but kind of easing into it overall. After the Sun is a solo Michael piece, a solo piano, which he did a lot of solo albums for Narada, just him on piano over the years. Dreamlight's my personal favorite, being the longest, and I think it's all David on there, playing a variety of overlaid cellos and his piano, where you really hear him stretch out and get into the texture of his instrument and of the overall landscape, just kind of stretching and elongating his lines. It makes me really think of like a sun shower, which I think the whole album kind of sounds like, a morning sun shower. The rain's kind of going diagonally, maybe a little bit of mist, but also the sun glinting through. Just as a real, so good at evoking these things. Just again his textural approach to the instrument, as well as harmonic and melodic, just unmistakably him throughout. And Shadows of the Moon, kind of returning to an earlier theme in the album. Both sounding kind of maybe even earlier in the morning, just before sun is rising. You've got that kind of pre-dawn feel. So a little bit of a glint on the horizon, and just you both evoke it so well. But this is David more, so you could say more of an ethereal, meditative tone throughout. Again, the improvisation is a little more subdued, but you still hear him unmistakably through there. So, yeah, David Darling and Michael Jones Amber from Narada. And just wanted to kind of do it this way. David Darling, just an amazing artist that we very much missed, and just one of those artists you never know quite where he's going to pop up either, as far as different albums and contexts. But just one of the greats, and would definitely recommend, if you see his name anywhere, by all means give it a listen. You'll hear many different dimensions and aspects to what he could do. His music, to me, always is represented kind of peace and hope. I always hear that in his music, and a real a sense of wonder and love of life in anything that he explored. Just the way he interacted with other musicians and or on his own, he always just felt better from hearing it. So yeah, rest in peace, David Darling. Showing the background here, it's another one of many albums he's played on. Grace, Paul Avgerinos. It's a little more recent, 2015. See a really nice cast of artists on here. Among them, Kevin Brahini Fortune, played on Hearts of Space early years, an electronic woodwind instrument and clarinet. But again, just so many different contexts. So, yeah. Grace, Paul Avgerinos. Well, I'm going to do it for about now. So a little tribute to David Darling, and let's see what comes next. Hope we're all doing well, and thank you for watching, and till the next one. Peace, love, and joy.